Part 1. The haunting absence of platinum and diamonds. The aroma of burnt sugar and frying butter usually heralded a Sunday morning ritual in the Harrington household. Pancakes. Fluffy, golden brown pancakes, drowned in maple syrup and topped with a mountain of whipped cream. It was comfort food, a tradition passed down from Nana Rose, my grandmother, along with a penchant for old movies and a dry, sarcastic wit. Today, though, the sweet scent did little to soothe the growing unease churning in my gut. I'd woken up later than usual, a blissful laziness stretching through my limbs. The silence in the house was almost unnerving. Even the usually boisterous squirrels seemed to have taken a day off from their backyard antics. I'd been looking forward to a day of pure indulgence. Pancakes, a classic black and white film on TCM, and maybe a long, luxurious bath with a good book. The first twinge of disquiet hit me as I reached for my jewelry box. It was an antique, crafted from dark, polished wood and lined with faded velvet, another heirloom from Nana Rose. Inside, nestled amongst the chaos of necklaces and earrings, was the ring. The ring. I wore it every day. It had become a part of me, an extension of my own skin. It was more than just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of strength, of resilience, of love. It was Nana Rose's engagement ring, given to her by my grandfather, a handsome jazz musician with a crooked smile and a heart full of dreams. It was a stunning Art Deco piece, platinum and diamonds, an intricate geometric design that seemed to capture the light in 1,000 different ways. It had been passed down through generations of women in our family, each of them imbuing it with their own stories, their own triumphs, their own heartaches. Today, though, the usual sparkle was missing. I opened the box, my fingers already reaching for the familiar cool weight of the platinum. But it wasn't there. The velvet lining was empty, a stark void where the ring should have been. My heart skipped a beat. Misplaced, I told myself. I'd probably just taken it off to wash my hands or put on lotion and forgotten where I'd put it. Happens all the time. But as I rifled through the jewelry box, tossing aside tangled necklaces and mismatched earrings, the panic started to creep in. It wasn't there. I checked every drawer, every corner of my room, underneath piles of clothes, behind books on my shelf, in the pockets of my favorite jeans. Nothing. My heart started to pound against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of fear. I rushed downstairs, my voice cracking as I called for my mom, Susan. She and my dad, Robert, were in the sunroom, bathed in the soft morning light streaming through the large windows. They were sitting on the wicker sofa, looking unusually relaxed. Too relaxed, almost. Susan was sipping tea, a serene smile on her face. Robert was reading the newspaper, his brow unusually smooth. My sister, Lily, was conspicuously absent. Lily, the drama queen of the family, who usually managed to commandeer the sunroom for her morning yoga routine. Mom? Dad? Have you seen my ring? Nana Rose's ring. I stammered, my voice betraying my mounting anxiety. Susan's smile faltered, just a fraction, but enough for me to notice. Robert cleared his throat, a nervous sound that amplified my unease. Honey, we need to talk. The words hung in the air, heavy and ominous. A cold dread washed over me, chilling me to the bone. I knew in that instant that something terrible had happened. Something that would change everything. Part 2. The Serpent in the Sanctuary, Bali's healing and a six-figure betrayal. The sunroom, normally a haven of tranquility filled with the scent of blooming jasmine and the gentle hum of the fountain, suddenly felt suffocating. The soft morning light seemed to amplify the awkwardness, the unspoken tension hanging heavy between us. I stood frozen, my bare feet cold against the tile floor, waiting for them to explain. Susan took a deep breath, her serene facade cracking slightly. Robert folded the newspaper, a deliberate act that seemed to buy him time. He avoided my gaze, focusing instead on a non-existent speck of dust on the coffee table. The story they told was a tangled web of strained justifications, carefully crafted half-truths, and blatant lies. It began, as all their Lily-centric narratives did, with Lily's supposed struggles. My younger sister, the golden child, had been struggling since graduating college 2 years prior. She'd flitted from job to job, a stint as a barista, a brief foray into freelance writing, a disastrous attempt at being a social media influencer. Boyfriends came and went with alarming speed, each breakup accompanied by theatrical tears and declarations of heartbreak. She declared, with dramatic flair worthy of a Shakespearean tragedy, that she was lost, that she didn't know who she was or what she wanted to do with her life. My parents, ever the enablers, the perpetual rescuers, had, of course, jumped to the rescue. They'd indulged her every whim, showering her with attention, sympathy, and, most importantly, money. They'd paid for therapy sessions, career coaching, and even a week-long silent retreat in the mountains. Nothing seemed to stick. Lily remained adrift, a lost ship tossed about on a stormy sea. Now, they decided what she really needed was a healing retreat in Bali. Apparently, the Indonesian island was a hotbed of spiritual enlightenment and holistic well-being. For a small fortune, one could find inner peace, unlock hidden potential, and, presumably, discover the meaning of life while sipping coconut water on a white sand beach. According to my parents, this particular retreat was eye-wateringly expensive. It included daily meditation sessions with a guru who claimed to be a descendant of ancient yogis, personalized yoga instruction tailored to Lily's specific chakras, organic smoothie cleanses made with exotic fruits, shamanic healing sessions involving chanting and drumming, and a daily dose of New Age claptrap that made my teeth ache. And as it turned out, my parents had run out of disposable income. The housing market, they explained, wasn't what it used to be. The stock market had been volatile. Their investments hadn't performed as well as they'd hoped. They'd considered taking out a loan, but interest rates were too high. It seemed the cosmic forces of the universe were conspiring against them, preventing them from adequately funding Lily's quest for self-discovery. Then, Susan said the words that made my stomach churn, words that would forever be etched in my memory, words that confirmed my worst fears. We decided to sell your ring, darling. Nana Rose's ring. She delivered the news with a strained attempt at lightness, as if she were announcing that they'd decided to change the brand of coffee they were buying. Robert nodded in agreement, his eyes still averted. We got a very good price for it, Susan continued, her voice wavering slightly. $690,000. A very good price indeed. $690,000. For my ring. For Nana Rose's ring. To send Lily, my coddled, entitled sister, to Bali to find herself. The absurdity of it all was breathtaking. I stared at them, speechless, my mind reeling. Disbelief warred with a boiling rage, a molten fury that threatened to erupt from my chest. Nana Rose's ring wasn't just some trinket, some expendable bauble to be pawned off to fund my sister's extravagant whims. It was a tangible link to my past, a symbol of my heritage, a connection to the strong, independent women who came before me. You sold Nana Rose's ring? Without even asking me. My voice was barely a whisper, a strangled sound that betrayed the depth of my shock. Robert finally met my gaze, his expression a mixture of guilt and defensiveness. He tried to put his hand on my shoulder, a gesture of comfort that felt like a violation. We knew you'd understand, sweetheart. Lily really needs this. Understand? Understand that you value Lily's vacation more than a priceless family heirloom? More than my feelings? More than Nana Rose's memory. The words tumbled out, fueled by years of simmering resentment, years of being second best, years of watching Lily get everything she wanted, effortlessly, without even asking. I'd always known deep down that Lily was their favorite, but to have it confirmed so brutally, so explicitly, was more than I could bear. The sunroom, once a sanctuary, now felt like a prison, trapping me in a web of lies and betrayals. The scent of jasmine had turned acrid. The gentle hum of the fountain now mocked me with its serenity. The seed of anger had been planted long ago, and now finally, it had begun to bloom. Part 3. A house of cards and a farewell note. The saccharine sweetness of their justification hung in the air, thick and cloying like cheap perfume. Each word, each carefully constructed phrase, only served to deepen the chasm between us, widening the cracks in the fragile foundation of our family. The argument escalated quickly, fueled by years of unspoken resentments and simmering frustrations. I felt a surge of anger, a raw, untamed fury that I'd kept bottled up for far too long. The years of playing the dutiful daughter, the supportive sister, the understanding friend, all of it felt like a sham, a carefully constructed facade that had finally crumbled under the weight of their betrayal. "It's always Lily, isn't it?" I spat, my voice trembling with barely suppressed rage. "Everything revolves around her. Her feelings, her needs, her struggles. What about me? What about what I want?" Robert recoiled, his face flushing a dangerous shade of red. "That's not fair, Amelia. We love you both equally." He always called me Amelia when he was trying to assert authority, a stiff, formal version of my name that felt cold and impersonal. "Oh, really?" I scoffed, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Then why did you sell my ring? Why didn't you sell something of Lily's? Her car? Her designer handbags? Oh, wait, that's right. Lily can't possibly sacrifice anything, can she?" Susan jumped to Lily's defense, her voice rising in pitch. "Lily's going through a difficult time, Amelia. She needs our support. You're just being selfish and unsupportive." "Selfish? Unsupportive?" I repeated, incredulous. "I've been supportive my whole life. I've always been there for Lily, cheering her on, listening to her whine, picking up the pieces after her endless string of disastrous relationships. And what do I get in return? My family heirloom stolen and sold behind my back so she can go on a freaking vacation." The argument spiraled downwards, devolving into a shouting match filled with accusations and recriminations. They accused me of being bitter, of being jealous of Lily's free spirit, of not understanding the importance of spiritual growth. I countered with accusations of favoritism, of enabling Lily's self-destructive behavior, of valuing material possessions over family bonds. I accused them of valuing Lily's happiness over mine, of always putting her first, of treating me like a second-class citizen in my own home. I told them I was tired of being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who always cleaned up Lily's messes. I told them I was tired of being the invisible daughter, the forgotten child, the one who never quite measured up to their expectations. Finally, overwhelmed by the torrent of emotions, I stormed out of the house, slamming the front door with enough force to rattle the windows. Tears streamed down my face, blurring my vision. I felt betrayed, violated, utterly disregarded. The ring was more than just jewelry. It was a symbol of my place in the family, and they'd just ripped it away from me, proving once and for all that I was second best. I drove aimlessly for hours, the landscape blurring into a meaningless kaleidoscope of greens and browns. I ended up at the local park, sitting on a swing set, watching the children play. The normalcy of their carefree laughter felt like a cruel taunt, a stark reminder of everything I'd lost. As dusk settled, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, I knew I couldn't go back. Not to that house, not to that family. I needed to escape, to find my own way, to build a life where I wasn't constantly defined by Lily's shadow. That night, I returned to the house under the cover of darkness. I crept upstairs to my room, packed a bag with essentials, my passport, a handful of clothes, and what little savings I had accumulated from my part-time job. I also grabbed a few mementos that reminded me of Nana Rose, a worn copy of her favorite book of poetry, a faded photograph of her and my grandfather laughing on a beach, a small, hand-painted porcelain bird that she had given me when I was a child. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the final act. I walked downstairs to the kitchen, the familiar creak of the floorboards echoing in the silence. I found a pen and a piece of paper on the counter and wrote a short, to-the-point note. "You chose Lily. I choose myself. Don't look for me." I left the note on the counter, right next to the teapot, a stark white rectangle against the granite surface. Then I slipped out of the house, closing the door gently behind me, leaving behind the only life I had ever known. I didn't know where I was going, or what I was going to do. But I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't coming back. I was finally free. Or at least, I hoped I was. Part 4. Ashes to Art. A journey of self-discovery and the spark of creation. Leaving the house that night was like stepping off a cliff. The familiar comfort and suffocating expectations were gone, replaced by a vast, unknown expanse. I felt a dizzying mix of fear and exhilaration. I was alone, adrift, but finally, I was also free to chart my own course. The first few weeks were a blur of uncertainty and instability. I couch-surfed with friends from high school, bouncing from spare bedroom to spare bedroom, trying to avoid being a burden. I picked up odd jobs, waitressing at a diner, dog walking for busy professionals, even a brief stint as a telemarketer, which I quit after 3 days, unable to stomach the relentless pressure and the scripted lies. Money was tight, and the constant insecurity gnawed at me. I missed the stability of my old life, the familiar routines, even the occasional family squabbles. But beneath the surface of anxiety and uncertainty, a new feeling began to blossom, a sense of empowerment. I was making my own choices, surviving on my own terms, taking responsibility for my own destiny. During my travels, and I use the term loosely because it was mostly hopping from one town over to the next, I stumbled upon something unexpected, a hidden talent for jewelry design. It wasn't a conscious decision, more like a series of serendipitous events that led me down an unforeseen path. It started with a trip to a local antique market. I was drawn to a stall filled with vintage beads, antique charms, and broken pieces of jewelry. I spent hours sifting through the treasures, admiring the craftsmanship, the intricate details, the stories that each piece seemed to whisper. I was especially drawn to the Art Deco era, the same style as Nana Rose's ring, with its bold geometric designs and its elegant simplicity. I bought a small bag of beads and a few broken pieces of jewelry, not really knowing what I would do with them. That night, back at my friend Sarah's apartment, I started to tinker. I took apart the broken jewelry, sorting the beads and charms into different piles. I experimented with different combinations, arranging and rearranging them, searching for a spark of inspiration. It was then that I remembered Nana Rose's ring, the intricate details, its timeless elegance. I began to sketch designs, inspired by the ring, but also by the vintage beads and charms I had collected. I drew bold geometric patterns, delicate floral motifs, and abstract shapes that seemed to capture the essence of my own journey. I took a few online courses in jewelry design, learning the basics of metalsmithing, beading, and wire wrapping. I practiced relentlessly, experimenting with different materials, different techniques, different styles. I discovered that I had a real knack for it, a natural eye for color, texture, and form. The act of creating jewelry became a form of therapy, a way to channel my emotions, to process my pain, to honor Nana Rose's memory. Each piece I created was a story, a reflection of my own journey, a celebration of strength, resilience, and self-discovery. I started selling my pieces at local craft fairs and farmers markets, setting up a small table with a few handmade displays. To my surprise, they were a hit. People were drawn to the unique designs, the intricate craftsmanship, the affordable prices, and the stories behind each piece. I discovered that people weren't just buying jewelry. They were buying a piece of my heart, a piece of my story, a piece of my soul. Slowly, but surely, I began to build a name for myself. My designs started to get noticed by local boutiques, who offered to carry my pieces in their stores. I created an online shop, showcasing my work to a wider audience. I started to receive commissions from private clients, who wanted custom design pieces that reflected their own personal style. I was creating beauty from scratch, forging my own path, honoring Nana Rose's memory in my own way. I was building a life that was authentic, meaningful, and truly my own. The months that followed were a whirlwind of creativity, hard work, and unexpected success. I felt like I was finally coming into my own, discovering my potential, embracing my passion. I was no longer the invisible daughter, the forgotten child. I was Amelia, the jewelry designer, the artist, the creator. And that was more than enough. Part 5. The Weight of Gold and the Reclaimed Legacy. 1 year after my dramatic exit, I was a completely different person. The lost, insecure teenager had been forged in the fires of adversity and transformed into a confident, independent woman. My jewelry business was thriving. I had a small but dedicated team of apprentices, a charming studio in a trendy neighborhood, and a growing reputation in the design world. I was still far from rich, but I was financially stable, creatively fulfilled, and most importantly, at peace with myself. Then, out of the blue, I received a cryptic email from a family friend, a woman named Eleanor who had always been a sympathetic ear during my childhood. The subject line simply read, "Thinking of you." The body of the email was brief and understated. "Your parents are struggling. Lily is back. They would love to hear from you." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to delete the email, to block Eleanor's address, to erase my family from my life entirely. They had hurt me deeply, and I wasn't sure I was ready to forgive them. But another part of me, the part that still remembered the good times, the shared memories, the unconditional love, however conditional it may have been, felt a twinge of guilt. They were my parents, after all. And no matter how much they had messed up, no matter how deeply they had wounded me, I couldn't completely abandon them. After days of agonizing deliberation, I replied to Eleanor's email. I kept it polite but distant, asking for details about my parents and Lily. Eleanor responded almost immediately, her email filled with veiled apologies and thinly disguised pleas for me to come home. "They are devastated, Amelia," she wrote. "Lily's healing was unsuccessful. She's back home, more lost than ever. Your parents miss you terribly. They realize now that they made a mistake. They want to apologize. They want to make things right. Please consider giving them a chance." The words tugged at my heartstrings. Could they really have changed? Could they finally see the error of their ways? Or was this just another manipulative ploy to lure me back into their toxic web? Despite my reservations, I knew I had to see them. I had to hear their apology face to face. I had to know, once and for all, if there was any hope of reconciliation. I booked a flight back to Connecticut. The reunion was predictably awkward. My parents were pale and drawn, their faces etched with worry lines. Susan looked years older, her usual carefully applied makeup failing to conceal the dark circles under her eyes. Robert was withdrawn and subdued, his booming voice reduced to a barely audible whisper. Lily, looking even more lost than before, barely acknowledged me, her eyes vacant and unfocused. They apologized, their voices stammering and tearful, for selling the ring, for their favoritism, for pushing me away. They admitted that they had been wrong, that they had prioritized Lily's needs over mine, that they had failed to appreciate my talents and my strengths. "We were wrong, sweetheart," Susan said, her voice trembling with emotion. "We were so focused on trying to fix Lily that we completely neglected you. We should have supported you, not tried to mold you into someone you weren't." Robert nodded in agreement, his eyes filled with remorse. "We're so sorry, Amelia. We know we can never make up for what we did, but we hope you can find it in your heart to forgive us." I listened to their apologies, their confessions, their pleas for forgiveness. And I realized, with a strange sense of detachment, that I had already forgiven them. Not for their sake, but for mine. Holding on to the anger and resentment had only been hurting me, poisoning my own soul. "I understand," I said, my voice calm and steady, devoid of emotion. But it's too late. Their faces fell. They had clearly been hoping for a dramatic reconciliation, a tearful embrace, a return to the status quo. They didn't realize that I was no longer the same person who had left this house a year ago. I was stronger, more independent, more self-assured, and I no longer needed their approval. I took a deep breath and decided to deliver the final blow, the revelation that would shatter their remaining illusions. "I'm doing well," I continued, my voice gaining strength. "My jewelry business is thriving." I opened my laptop and showed them my website, showcasing my designs, my studio, my team of apprentices. Then, I showed them an article in Vogue magazine, featuring my work, calling me the next big thing in jewelry design. I watched their expressions change from hopeful anticipation to stunned disbelief to grudging admiration. Lily, who had been silently sulking in the corner, finally looked up, her face a mask of jealousy and resentment. Then, I revealed the final card. "And that ring? Nana Rose's ring?" I tracked it down. I bought it back. For $1.2 million. I reached into my purse and pulled out a small velvet box. I opened it, revealing the ring, sparkling in the light, its platinum and diamonds radiating an ethereal glow. "I'm keeping it safe now," I said, my voice firm and unwavering, where it belongs. The look on their faces was priceless. Years of favoritism, of pushing me aside, of underestimating my potential, had all led to this moment. They had sold my past, and I had used my future to reclaim it. They thought they were helping Lily heal. Instead, they'd created a woman who could buy and sell their entire world. I left them sitting there, stunned, speechless, the weight of their mistakes crushing them. I knew that they would never truly understand what I had accomplished, what I had overcome, what I had become, but I no longer cared. As I drove away from the house, I looked down at Nana Rose's ring on my finger. It was more than just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of my own resilience, my own strength, my own triumph over adversity. It was a reminder that, even in the darkest of times, beauty can emerge from the ashes. And I knew, with unwavering certainty, that Nana Rose would have been proud. I finally understood that their approval wasn't worth chasing. I had my talent, my success, and Nana Rose's ring, and that was more than enough. I was finally home, not in the house I left, but in the soul I'd found.